Hello and welcome to our first official episode of Punctual Politics. I'm your host, Dawson Iasillo, and I'm so excited to be kicking things off with you all today. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you are listening to this on your morning commute, squeezing this in during a workout, or just maybe relaxing with a cup of coffee at home. However you found yourself here, I'm so glad that you did. Now, if you caught last week's intro, you already know that this podcast is all about keeping you up to date on what's happening in the world of politics, but in a way that's digestible, conversational, and hopefully not too overwhelming. My goal here isn't to just throw a bunch of headlines at you, it's to break them down, give you the bigger picture, and maybe even leave a few things with you to think about during your day. So with that said, let's dive into our very first full lineup of stories. Over the weekend, one of the biggest headlines came out of Arizona, where a massive memorial was held for Turning Point USA's CEO and founder, Charlie Kirk. And when I say massive, I truly mean it. Reports say more than 200,000 people showed up. To put that into perspective, that would be taking the entire population of a city like Des Moines, Iowa, and putting it into one big stadium. We've heard from his wife, Erica Kirk, who will be the new CEO of Turning Point USA, as well as some very familiar names, including President Donald Trump and his son, Donald Trump Jr., along with RFK Jr. Whether you agreed with Kirk's politics or not, the sheer turnout makes it clear that he was a major figure in shaping the conservative youth movement. Shifting to the international stage, France made a big move on Monday, officially declaring that Palestine should be recognized as its own state. And this wasn't an isolated move. It followed similar announcements just after Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal announced this just a day earlier. Now, recognition of Palestine has been one of the most contentious topics in global politics for decades. For some countries, that represents support for Palestinian sovereignty and self-determination. For others, including the United States, it's seen as premature, especially given the ongoing conflict and negotiations with Israel. What makes this especially timely is the UN's recent accusation that Israel has committed acts of genocide towards Palestine. That's a huge statement, and it's adding fuel to the international debate. So all eyes turn to the UN General Assembly this week, where President Trump was scheduled to speak on Tuesday. The U.S. stance hasn't changed. They still oppose recognition of Palestine, but as more countries start shifting, the pressure builds. And here's something to think about. When big powers like France or Britain make a move like this, it often creates a domino effect. What other countries will follow suit, and will countries follow suit, and what will that mean for the U.S. foreign policy moving forward? Switching gears to the entertainment world, late-night TV has been shaken up in a big way. Jimmy Kimmel's show was suspended indefinitely after comments he made about Charlie Kirk's death. Kimmel called it a, quote, senseless murder, unquote, and criticized those celebrating it online. He also accused Trump and his supporters of using Kirk's death for political gain. This raises a fascinating question about the intersection between the world of entertainment and politics. Late-night hosts aren't just telling jokes, they're part of the political conversation, and sometimes that means holding power accountable, and sometimes it means stepping into controversy. Whether you agree with Kimmel or not, his suspension shows the risks that come with blending comedy and commentary in today's political climate. Now let's head over to California, where lawmakers just made a pretty groundbreaking move. Governor Gavin Newsom just passed a law banning law enforcement officers from wearing face masks during operations. At first, this might seem a little odd. After all, masks have been a part of police gear for years. But this decision came directly after recent immigration raids in Los Angeles, where masked federal agents conducted mass arrests. The argument from the state government is that covering masks makes it nearly impossible to hold these individuals accountable for their actions. Critics, though, argue the opposite, that banning masks could put officers at risk, especially in dangerous operations. So this is one of those debates where both sides are raising serious concerns. Safety versus transparency. Which one should take priority? That's the question Californians and maybe other states down the line will need to grapple with. Now let's head over to Washington, D.C. and discuss what is happening there, where the U.S. government is just days away from a potential shutdown. Democratic leaders like Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries are calling on President Trump to come to the table and negotiate. They're pointing the finger directly at him, saying that if offices close on September 30th, it's, quote, your decision, unquote. The core issue here is healthcare funding. Democrats want guarantees that healthcare programs will be protected in any agreement to keep the government running. Republicans, following Trump's lead, have so far resisted those demands. We've seen shutdowns before, and they're never smooth. Federal workers go without paychecks, services slow down or stop altogether, and public trust in government takes another hit. The question now is whether both sides can find enough common ground before the deadline hits. Speaking of Trump, his new immigration proposal has created a lot of confusion, particularly among immigrant workers in the tech industry. A new $100,000 fee was announced for H-1B visas, which are often used by companies to hire highly skilled workers for specialized roles. At first, many thought this would apply to all current visa holders, but the White House clarified quickly this fee only applies to new applicants. Still, that's a massive amount of money, and it could reshape who applies for these visas and how companies fill critical tech positions. On the tech front, TikTok is back in the spotlight, which at this point feels like a regular occurrence. The White House is reportedly working on a deal with China that would give the U.S. more control over how TikTok operates here. The proposal would allow Oracle to handle TikTok's data and security, while U.S. governments would have more influence over the app's algorithm, which is basically the secret recipe that decides what shows up on our feeds. The big debate here is over balance. How do you protect national security without crossing into heavy-handed government oversight of social media? It's a tough line to walk, and whatever happens with TikTok could set a precedent for other platforms in the future. And finally, let's end with a shake, literally. On Monday morning, a 4.3 magnitude earthquake rattled San Francisco. More than 24,000 people reported feeling it. Luckily, the damage was relatively minor. Think cracked windows, toppled shelves, that kind of thing. But for anyone living in the Bay Area, it was a nerve-wracking way to start the week. It's moments like these that remind us how quickly life can shift. 1 minute you're making coffee, the next your entire house is shaking. So there you have it, from massive political memorials and international recognition battles to entertainment controversies, tech negotiations, and even the earthquakes. That's your snapshot of the week so far. Before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you again for joining me on my very first official episode of Punctual Politics. My goal here is to keep you informed, engaged, and maybe even a little more prepared to make sense of the headlines flying around. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Nebraskan YouTube, share this with a friend, and stay tuned, because next week we'll be back with more updates and deeper conversations about the issues that are shaping the world. Until then, I'm Dawson Iasillo, and this was Punctual Politics. See you next time.